Hey everyone, welcome back to the bonus section where we'll be looking at integrating Google Maps into our application so that we can get live information from Google about these places. Now, in order for us to do this, we're going to be using something called Firebase functions, which enable us to run a mobile backend without the need to manage servers, meaning we're going to be deploying code that's going to run on the cloud in Firebase, and it's going to expose to us an endpoint from which we will receive information that comes from Google. Now, you can read up on Firebase functions over here, and in actuality, what it basically is, it's a little piece of code that's going to run on a server, and it's going to do an API call for us to Google in order to do our search and retrieval of information. Now, a very, very important note we need to make here. Very important. For this portion of the course, we are going to be upgrading from the free plan to the pay-as-you-go plan, which also has free limits. It has free limits up to 2 million invocations a month, 400,000 requests of gigabits per second. Now, the free tier does not allow us to run functions unless we use Node version 8. This is a big limitation as Node has moved way beyond and will potentially later on be removed. So we want to be able to use Firebase in a way that allows us to deploy these functions properly. This means you will have to update your plan to pay as you go and means you need payment information. And the same is true for Google Maps. In order for us to use Google Maps, there is a pay scale. It is pay as you go. Now, Google Maps also has a free amount of requests. You can do up to $200 per month of requests. But just note here that in order to do the complete section of the Firebase and Google Maps integration, you will need payment information, and we are not liable for any costs you may incur. However, we will teach you how to set up the cloud environment and teach you how to run your Fire function locally so that you can limit the amount of live costs you may incur. That being said, things can happen. I myself, during development, made a small mistake over here in the Google Maps platform, and I incurred 65,000 requests worth of costs. Now, that was a stressful evening right there. But luckily, I reached out to the Google platform team and they helped me out. They helped me fix everything. And they also gave me some tips and tricks that I'm going to be passing along to you in terms of setting up quotations, making sure that your Google Cloud is set up so that you can limit the amount of costs you can incur. That being said, nothing is 100% fail-proof. That's why you have to link payment information. You may incur some costs. You may not. It depends on how you utilize this section. And we're going to teach you as much as possible about how to use these services. If you do not have payment information, however, and you cannot do this bonus section, don't be afraid. You can run your Fire function, your Firebase function. You can run it locally. You will not be able to do the full integration to Google as you need payment information to talk to Google, but we will be migrating our mock information to a server environment, which you can invoke locally. Now, that said, this will mean that your app will be reliant on the server. So you have to be careful in how you approach this section, because if you cannot push your Fire function to the cloud, your app will only work locally because you will only locally have the Firebase function. So you can test this section out even if you don't have payment information up to a point. It is important to, though, realize that you do need payment information in order to complete this entire section. So with that said, and that out of the way, let's take a look at everything we need to put in place in order to set up our Firebase functions. In this video, we're going to show you how to set up your payment information to upgrade from your Spark plan, just in case you do not have any payment information set up on Google. Now, if we press the upgrade button here, we can see the pay-as-you-go plan. And if we say select plan, it's going to tell us, hey, you want to go to the pay-as-you-go plan. You will now be charged based on your usage. And if we say continue, it's going to take us to the Google Cloud Console. Now, this Google Cloud Console is specifically for Firebase, and it's going to tell us a bunch of things that we have to agree to. Agree to add a billing account. Over here, you can see it's asking me to create a new billing account, and it's going to give it a name. It's going to give it a country and a currency. So select your country here that you live. When you press continue, it is then going to ask you to set up information about your personal or business. So if you're an individual, set up an individual and say some street. You do have to fill in real information here. So fill in where you live. The only reason I'm not filling in where I live is because I don't want the entire internet to know. Now over here, you're going to see that this individual lives at some street in some city in potentially Ontario. And let's say that he lives at M3J2PA or 2PO. And phone number is optional. It'll ask you about automatic payments. You'll have to fill in your credit card information here. And then once you submit and enable billing, you will be able to upgrade your Firebase instance to a paid plan. Now make sure that the information you fill in here is accurate, as otherwise the billing may be rejected. And now that you've done that, you should be able to see your Firebase set up in a way where if you go to the Meals to Go app and you try to upgrade your plan to pay as you go, it will automatically upgrade your project and you should be good to go. Now you can set a budget alert if you wish to, for instance, know at a certain amount where you stand. Great. So knowing that, we now know that we'll be able to set up our Firebase function and deploy it with a paid account. Now, if you're unable to put in a paid account here, don't worry. You'll still be able to run your Firebase function locally. You will not be able to integrate with Google Cloud, however, to build out a server.